Jai Hind. I am Pallavi Tyagi, Assistant Professor, Swami Vivekanand Subharti University. Today will be your MC for this webinar organized by Swami Vivekanand Subharti University on 1 year of transformation reforms under National Education Policy 2020. Today's topic is knowledge system, languages, arts and culture. We already had 3 webinars prior to this one, 4 webinars prior to this one, which were on equity and inclusion by Law College, by multidisciplinary and holistic education, which was coordinated by Management College, and different participants were there from SMC, Yoga, Dental, Pharmacy, Nursing. Sorry, it was organized by Sciences. We had another webinar, the third one, on skills, entrepreneurship, development, employability, challenges and opportunity, which was by Management College, and there were different associated colleges with that, like Engineering College, Polytechnic, and Hotel Management. The fourth point was on the effect of NEP on youth empowerment and sports development. The coordinator was Physical Education College, and there were different colleges which were a part of it, like mass communication, education, physiotherapy, law, pharmacy, yoga. So as I told you in the start only, that today's topic is, in this series, Indian knowledge system, languages, arts and culture. For today's webinar, our first speaker is Ms. K.N. Sumathi. Ms. Sumathi Singh has served at various yoga schools as a trainer, supporting lead trainer, education resource manager, yoga counselor, and in several other roles. She has also designed syllabi for different courses in Samatha and Vipassana meditation and extension studies. Her specialization includes yoga philosophy, yoga psychology, anatomy and physiology, Ayurveda, pranayama, and breathwork energies. She also practices yoga therapy and meditation. So, wholeheartedly, I would like to welcome Ms. K.N. Sumathi to take over and enlighten us about today's very topic on NEP 2020. Okay, we are trying to connect our guest here, so it'll take a while. I would like to request our IT team if we could share her PPT first. Okay.
start. Namaste. A very warm good afternoon to all the viewers who are together with us in this attending this program and this webinar. So today's topic for this online webinar is our Indian knowledge system, language, and art and culture. So let's begin with that. So many of the viewers might not be having the background of history or some sort of this background. So for them, I would just like to introduce the topic first. So Indian knowledge system, language, art and culture basically is taught under the history department or department when we talk about history and stuff that happened in the antique times. So Indian knowledge system basically comes under the cultural study of civilization, and there is a single difference between civilization and culture. So civilization is something that we have, whereas culture is something that we are. So all those norms, all that we have imbibed in our life through our learning, through our acculturations, through our training, through our modeling, whatever we are, that represents our culture. And whatever architectural stuffs we have, whatever things we find in concrete, tangible form, that forms a part of our civilization. So today we talk about these issues, these topics, and let's move further. So not all of us have a good understanding or good deep in-depth study of the history of India. For all of them, I'm just giving a brief timeline of how history is studied in India. So since human beings are born, I like they come into this proper human form from the theory of evolution of Charles Darwin, if we believe in that. So since we came into existence till the time human became from Homo erectus to Homo sapien, but still had not learned how to write. Till that, the history comes in the form of prehistory. We have no written records, but these stages have been divided into certain types like Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic, where people used to be in stone ages. So they used to live in caves. They were learning to draw. They were learning to hunt. They were learning to create fire. So all these basic stuffs were happening in that history. That is the prehistory. And ancient history is that part of history of India where we see historians knowing that a great civilization called Indus Valley Civilization somehow existed into 3500 BC, and this was one of the cradles of Indian human civilization, one of the major civilizations ever existed on Earth, along with the Babylonian and the Chinese Huanghu civilization. This was one of the foremost and important Indus Valley civilization, after which existed 3500 BC ago. And afterward, when Aryans migrated, and then the whole period of Buddha in 500 BCE and post-Buddha until 8th century AD, that comes in the part of ancient history of India. And from there, from 8th century AD to 18th century AD, where basically the major happening was Islamic invasion, and that time comes under the medieval time. And after 18th century, when we see the period of colonialism and neocolonialism, that comes under the period of modern history. So this is a brief timeline of how human proceeded from the prehistory Now moving ahead to the next slide is the global views about India. So there are two views in which we know about ourselves. One is a subjective view, another is the objective view. So we often talk about ourselves. We are great. We have a great history, but it's good to know about how other people also see us. What are their views? How do they see? Because the West has it's a typical view of West to see us in a very scientific and a very empirical way. So let's see what Westerners say about the Aboriginal India, Indian systems and culture. On the right-hand side, you would see a picture of the projection of Dharma. And this was the picturization of a dream that Buddha had, the enlightened being Gautama Buddha had. So let's move to the next slide. So the first slide is about Indian medicine. Indian medicine is also called as Ayurveda, or the biological sciences of India. A.L. Basher, the wonder that India was, 1971, says that Indian surgery remained ahead of Europeans until the 18th century, when the surgeons of East India Company were not ashamed to learn the art of rhinoplasty from the Indians. For most of you, it will be shocking to know that we Indians in India, we were so much ahead of the science and medicine that was there in the Europe. And at that time, actually, Europe was going in the dark ages, even at that time. And in India, we had Charak Samhita, Sushruta Samhita, and other schools of Indian health sciences, which can be traced back to ancient lineage of Dhanvantri, a forerunner Acharya of Varanasi, and a proponent of school of Bhargavi Samhita, the Bhargavi Atharva Veda, and the Atreya Samhita. The 8 components of Kaya Chikitsa, like we had different departments in medicine, like today we have pediatrics and other ones. So they had this medicine and pediatrics and Salya Tantra, like surgical techniques, Salyaka Tantra, ENT, Bhuta Vidya, like material pathology, Agada Tantra, like toxicology, Rasayana Tantra, rejuvenation therapy, and Vaijakarana Tantra, and so many more, like they were full-fledged departments of Indian medicine existed. And that was mentioned by A.L. Basher. And moving ahead to the next, Bijaganita and Geometry. So Bijaganita and Geometry comes under Indian mathematics and geometry. The great Albert Einstein says that we owe a lot to Indians who taught us how to count, without which no worthwhile scientific discovery could have been made. He was a Nobel laureate in physicists. He doesn't need any introduction. So he said that the legacy of Aryabhatta, Brahmagupta, Bhaskara II, and Varahamihira of medieval India can be traced back to older sutras like the Bodhayana, Madhava, Apastamba, and Katyayana Sutras of 800 and 600 BCE, and the Sulabha Sutras. The sutras forward the details of construction of sacrificial altars like yupa or chaityas based on astral coordinations in the form of jaw-shaped arbs, cords, ear, and footprints. They originate back to Taittiriya branch of Krishna Yajurveda school. So this gives us a glimpse of how developed our mathematics was. And this was also considered by Albert Einstein. Next is Rasayana Shastra, or chemical sciences. So Sir James Grant Duff, he was a Scottish soldier and historian. So what he says about Indian Rasayana Shastra is many of the advances in the sciences that we consider today to have been made in Europe were in fact made in India centuries ago. So he was aware of that India was so much ahead even in the chemistry or the chemical sciences, and that's what he said that so it's his saying that in Indian metaphysics, so how chemical sciences were seen in India, there's a full science of alchemy which comprises metaphysics. Even yoga comes under that, because yoga talks about the inner alchemy, how transformation and metamorphosis happens inside. And all these means to create yoga or Jnana Shakti, which is called as Jnana Shakti, and Shema Shakti, also called as Kyam, means to sustain the diversity of creation, which is called Kriya Shakti. The two are polarized Samavartana, and they jointly represent the levitating and gravitating systems of human thought. Both are important, as it is said, Yoga Shema Vahamyam, that was said in Bhagavad Gita. And Shema represents an inner path, ayana, of arriving at the essence rasa of life by transmutating material or mercurial values. So, in brief, like they were so much aware that the Indian chemistry or alchemical science was so much ahead of the Western. Moving to the next slide. Our next topic is Indian environmental sciences, which is called as Prakriti Vidya. So, Sir Romain Rolland, he was also a Nobel laureate and French philosopher. So he said that if there is one place on the face of this earth where all the dreams of living men have found a home from the very earliest days, when men began the dream of existence, it is India. He was a philosopher, and he had a lot to talk about how India had this essential understanding of environmental sciences. And he says that a holistic art of living, combining the natural and the artificial, is increasingly becoming significant today. The symbiosis of life with nature, her heterogeneity, her natural relationships formulate life cycles of growth and evolution. Modern sciences call it deep ecology or biocentrism. Indian ecological and environmental sciences is increasingly revisited today as reductionism in science and subject to a paradigm shift in pattern of production and consumption, and a replacement of competition by cooperation. It's very important. The replacement of competition by cooperation. Lessons from India's green Aranyakya settlements, forest hermitages have fostered a vision for sustainable development. We are all talking about sustainable development these days, but India actually lived it through its tradition. And so on and so forth. There were so many protocols that UN in UN agenda there had been several protocols, and that also comes along with what India had in its tradition with environment protection sciences. Moving ahead, on the next slide we see Indian economic system, which was called as Arthashastra, and here. Mark Twain, all these literature lovers, they know Mark Twain, American humorist and writer. So he said that India is the cradle of human race, the birthplace of human speech, the mother of history, the grandmother of legend, and the great-grandmother of tradition. Our most valuable and most constructive materials in the history of men are treasured up in India. So we all know about Indian economics in Arthashastra. Kautilya, we know Kautilya, he had studied in Takshila, and around 300 BC, we see that so many texts were written down, and he was also identified as Vishnugupta, and who is traditionally credited as the author of Arthashastra. So there were different shastras written down. He was one of the authors of economical Shastra and economics, Indian economics. But the more ancient source of economic and cultural treatise of community planning, agriculture, produce, mineralogy, mining and metals, animal husbandry, medicine, forest, and wildlife can be traced back to Manusmriti. So there are different views about how and who were the people who contributed in that. But nobody can deny that we had actually this tradition, and these texts and these scriptures were very much an intricate part of Indian administration, Indian studies, and Indian knowledge system. Moving ahead, we see Jyotir Tatha Mahajagatik Vidya. That is the astral and cosmological science, and this comes under Indian cosmological system. So now we have a NASA, and we have so many different space agencies of Russia, USA. We are going to Moon, and we are planning to go exploring about the universe. But it's so strange that in India, while sitting in our homes, we had all the understanding of what and how things are happening around us, how these big stars and meteors and meteorites and galaxies are forming and how they are influencing us. So it was a concept of relationship that we and the cosmos, they are interrelated. And Voltaire, the French Enlightenment writer and reformer, said that, "I'm convinced that everything has come down to us from the banks of the Ganga. Astronomy, astrology, metamorphosis." Can I go to the slide? So I'm just reading the slide now. Yeah. So you can read how Voltaire, the French Enlightenment writer and reformer, wrote about India and how deep reverence they have for India. So he said his word that I'm repeating that. He said that I'm convinced that everything has come down to us from the banks of the Ganga, astronomy, astrology, metapsychosis, etc. It does not behoove us, who were only savages and barbarians, when these Indians and Chinese peoples were civilized and advanced. And 1,000 years prior to ancient Greeks and Babylonians, and of course much prior to Galileo, Kepler, Copernicus, and Tycho Brahe, Indian cosmology and positional astronomy were fully aware of geocentric, heliocentric, and galactic patterns of the universe based on relationship between matter and energy, and so on. So just a brief understanding of how intensely and deeply we were understanding these cosmological studies, and we were having a proper a text and proper discipline. Moving to the next slide. So this is Indian aesthetics and architecture. So Nandan, Tatya, and Vastu Vidya, this is how it is called, aesthetics and architectural sciences. Dr. Arnold J. Toynbee, a British historian, say that it's already becoming clearer that a chapter which has a Western beginning will have to have an Indian ending if it's not to end in the self-destruction of human race. At this supremely dangerous moment in history, the only way of salvation for mankind is the Indian way. So this is such an important saying from someone who is a foreigner to us, and believing that in India and Indians and Indian way has the only power to save the whole human race. This is such deep. And further about this Indian aesthetics and architecture, it says that Indian Shilpa Shastras is always a holistic system of arts and crafts forwarding human-centered design principles that regard biocentrism and cosmology. One specific branch is Vastu Shastras that deals with small building architecture to large-scale country and town planning. Tracing from the seventh mandala of the Rig Veda, it is further evident in Mamuni Mavan text of Tamil Sangam literature and so on. So we have enormous body of knowledge that talks about Indian aesthetics and architectural design, from designing from our small yantras to the big temples or houses, and the list goes on and on. And the next slide, we will see, last but not the least, language Sanskrit. So about this language, Will Durant, a world historian, said that Sanskrit in India was the motherland of our race, and Sanskrit the mother of Europe's language. She was the mother of our philosophy, mother to the Arabs of much of our mathematics, mother to the Buddha of the ideals embodied in Christianity, mother to the village community of self-government and democracy. Mother India is in many ways the mother of us all. So this was the background of history of the Sanskrit as a knowledge system, one of the knowledge systems. Next slide. So in this slide, we can see like 7 eminent Indian scientists who took forward the ancient sciences of India in their own way. You can see them. They are 3 women, which is very important: Acharya Asima Chatterjee, Acharya K.K. Janki Amma, and Acharya Iravati Karwa, along with please इसको हटाइए मत because it's I have to read. So these 7 rishis. So IIT Kharagpur actually published this picture. It's nice to see how Sapta rishis of modern Indian science are seen today. So today's intellectual, scientific, and artistic knowledge traditions are an inseparable whole through which the lineage of classical thoughts, traditions, and practices of Indian civilization has become more relevant in the contemporary humanity. From the archaic tradition of Saptarishis of times of remote antiquity to an era of modern Indian scientific mind. So these are the representation of how ancient science actually, how they took the gist of ancient science and assimilated it in the Western way to present it to the whole world. And in the next slide. Yeah. So in the previous slides, we saw how Westerners saw Indian knowledge systems and 7 of the eminent Indian scientists. Now, it's important to know something about Indian new education policy, because we are bringing this talk in the light of the new education policy, and it's very important to know why such topics are needed to be conjoined, because this is how we educators, we teachers, we are so much responsible to first inculcate these understandings in ourselves, to first firmly believe in, do I believe in my tradition? Do I believe in my history? Do I take pride in my own history? Then only I will have confidence to teach when I'm teaching to students, to go and impart and communicate with the communities. So it's very important first to understand few features of the new education policy. So for all of this, I'm just bringing these few important points, and I will read through it. And this is from the new education policy itself, which was released by the government of India. So some important features are: education is fundamental for achieving full human potential. And please mark some important things that I've mentioned: full human potential, developing an equitable and just society. So society which is equitable, which is seen equal, gender-wise, financial-wise, finance-wise, and different other means. We are equitable. And then thus promoting national development. So each individual are responsible for national development. Each of us are representative for India. We are small India in ourselves. Then economic growth, social justice and equality, scientific advancement, national integration and cultural preservation. And these all are under the agenda of Sustainable Development 2030. So India government has this agenda for sustainable development until 2030. Under this agenda, they have brought this new education policy 2020, because without a proper educational value and education system, we cannot dream of a sustainable development. These are needed to be inculcated deep in our heart and mind so that it will come into the practice. Then the rich heritage of ancient and eternal Indian knowledge and thought has been a guiding light for policy. It's very important. So what I talked before, like how Westerners saw Indian knowledge system and Indian art and Indian sciences, now this new education policy is finding a necessity that again we have to go back. In between, there had been some ups and downs. We got disconnected. We got so much attached with the modern sciences, but someday we were somehow not able to see our roots, which were so rich and so enriching that Westerners even came back to India and they enriched themselves with that science. So we need to go back, and this policy helps us to get the confidence that I can go back to my own rich heritage, and it has so much to offer me. Going to the next slide. And I'll read, this is a very important part of this new education policy, which says that the pursuit of knowledge, jnana, or wisdom, pragya, and chut satya, these are very important part of our inquiry, human inquiry. This is a very beautiful saying that mananat iti manushyana. Who is a human being? A human being is one who can think, who has the power to discriminate, who can see what is right and what is wrong, who has ethics, who has values. So that differentiates us from a cultured society, from a non-cultured society, from animals to humans. So these are very, very important terms to be kept in mind. So Knowledge, jnana, wisdom, and truth. That is the foundation stone of our pursuit of knowledge. The aim of education in ancient India was not just the acquisition of knowledge as preparation for life in this world or life beyond schooling, but for the complete realization of liberation of the self. So we in India had this beautiful tradition of knowing the apara vidya, like the knowledge of living a life in a good way, having all these skills to live a good life, but not compromising our final goal, which is to realize our true self, to work for that, and to finally get liberated. That has been the foundation stone of our education system. And world-class institutions of ancient sciences, ancient India we had, like Takshashila, Nalanda. Nalanda boasts to be the first residential university of the world. Vikramshila, Vallabhi set the highest standards of multidisciplinary teaching and research and hosted scholars and students from across backgrounds and countries. The Indian education system produces great scholars such as Charaka, Sushruta, Aryabhat, Varahamiriha, Bhaskaracharya, Brahmagupta, Chanakya, Chakrapani, Datta, Madhava, Panini, Patanjali, Nagarjuna, Gautama, Pingala, Shankar Deva, Maitri, Gargi, Thiruvalluvar, among numerous others, who made seminal contributions to world knowledge in diverse fields such as mathematics, astronomy, metallurgy, medical science and surgery, civil engineering, architecture, shipbuilding, and navigation, yoga, fine arts, chess, and more. Indian culture and philosophy have had a strong influence on the world. These rich legacies to world heritage must not only be nurtured and preserved for posterity, but also researched, enhanced, and put to new uses through our new education system. To the next slide. Now, what are the principles of these new education policy commitment? What have they laid as our important principles? So, first among them is the purpose of education system is to develop good human beings. It's not to get good, great marks or to get an A or B. It's not the essence of our education system. A new education system says that the purpose of education is to develop good human beings, how good you are internally, how capable you are for the rational thought and bringing that into action, possessing compassion and empathy, courage and resilience, developing scientific temper and creative imagination with sound ethical moorings and values. Also, it aims at producing engaged, productive, and contributing citizens for building an equitable, inclusive, and plural society as envisaged by our institution. So these are some foundational principles of the new education policy. Moving to the next slide. No hard separation. So it's very beautiful to see how this new education policy sees a few important aspects of our education, that no hard separations are made between arts and sciences, between curricular and extracurricular activities, between vocational and academic streams, etc. This was exactly happening in the ancient Gurukul system, that a person who engages in education, become a chhatra or a chhatra, she gets all sorts of education, like education streams. Like it was not like today, if I choose to have physics and then I cannot study about history of India. It was not like that, because all sciences are somehow interrelated. And this is very well presented in the new education policy. Multidisciplinary and holistic education across the sciences, social sciences, arts, humanities, and sports for a multidisciplinary board in order to ensure the unity and integrity of all knowledge. Emphasis on conceptual understanding rather than rote learning and learning for exams. So what you understand, how much you understand the concept, that is more important than how much you crammed and you put it in your exam papers. That is not important. What it is, how much you have understood it, how much you have inculcated, how much you have absorbed, and how much refined now your thinking process is. Then ethics and human constitutional values like empathy, respect for others, cleanliness, and the list goes on. Now, vision of the new education policy. So vision is very important. Vision is what you see, what you project. how you see this new education policy to be fulfilling and how will it fulfill. So an education system rooted in Indian ethos that contributes directly to transforming India, that is Bharat, sustainably into an equitable and vibrant knowledge society by providing high quality education to all and thereby making India a global knowledge superpower. So it's telling that it's giving confidence to all of us. Doesn't matter. Don't you need not feel inferior for one or the other reason. You yourself are unique, and you have to trust your own uniqueness, and you need to increase. You have to work on your inner power to be competent enough to show what you are good into. You need not compare yourself with other people in that matter. To develop among the students a deep sense of respect toward the fundamental duties and constitutional values, bonding with one's country, and a conscious awareness of one's roles and responsibilities in a changing world. So nation is not just a concept. We call in India Bharat Mata. She's a mother for us. There's a deep relationship that we hold with this land. And this vision is talking about how much closely we believe that we have respect and honor for our land, which holds such rich culture and which enriches us and had been enriching our past generations, our generation, and promises to enrich the coming ones. So having a respect toward that. And to instill among the learners a deep-rooted pride in being Indian, not only in thought, but also in spirit, intellect, and deeds, as well as to develop knowledge, skills, values, and dispositions that support responsible commitment to human rights, sustainable development, and living, and global well-being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. So until we don't have a deep-rooted belief in our system, after this period of colonization, I think we all, along with me, we suffered from this feeling of inferiority. Like we are inferior. English is better than Hindi, right? To dress like a Westerner is better than to dress in Indian attire. So this is how it was imposed on us. We have to come out of that shadow and we have to trust our true wisdom and knowledge, which is far, far superior. And we have to. This will happen only when we have deep trust in wisdom and knowledge through understanding our rich heritage and culture. Going to the next. So now we have understood how Indian knowledge system to propagate our culture, to propagate the information about our culture, we need to have a certain knowledge system. And an Indian knowledge system had this amalgamation of different streams and different skills and vocational, non-vocational, everything was a part of it. So still today, Indian knowledge system, it has lots of different aspects. So like we can see on the screen, this Indian knowledge system, which includes tribal knowledge. We have tribals, we have so many tribals and they are so wise. We have heard of the word of a shaman, the Indic medicine teacher and all that, and their knowledge, all the sorts of things, and their own way of being with nature and learning from nature. So they also have a great understanding of life. So it's about including tribal knowledge and indigenous and traditional way of learning, like how we used to study. Like we had a great mnemonic techniques. We used to memorize whole sutras like Vedas and Pali Canon. Like all these sutras were learned through mnemonic techniques, and this used to sharpen our understanding in mathematics, astronomy, philosophy, yoga, architecture, medicine, agriculture, engineering, linguistics, literature, sports, games, as well as in governance, polity, conservation, specific courses in tribal ethno-medicinal practices. This tribal ethno-medicinal practices, it's something like Ayurveda or naturopathy that they inculcated. Like if most of us, if we are interacting with our grandparents, they would know, like if you use a certain plant or a flower or a leaf in a certain situation, it will help you. You need not go to the doctor every time for small stuffs. Forest management, traditional organic crop cultivation, natural farming, they all come under the Indian knowledge system. and redesigned to be strongly rooted in Indian and local context, and it holds in terms of culture, traditions, heritage, customs, language, philosophy, geography, ancient and contemporary knowledge, societal and scientific needs, indigenous and traditional ways of learning. So it's a huge thing, and I think we will be happy to know like we have so many subjects to choose from. We have this opportunity that we can study ethnomedical practices with astronomy. So we have wide choices now to study. So this is something beautiful. Then something important to share about Indian traditional knowledge system is that India, as I begin with, if you know, a great scholar from Pakistan, Tariq Fateh, he said once that India is not just a country, it's one of the first civilization, and this civilization resides in all of us. We carry that civilization. So that civilization cradles the deep wisdom of external, that is apara vidya, and internal para vidya. Now, what is this external apara vidya and internal para vidya? So in West, we have just seen like material science, but in India, we had material science and an esoteric science. There we talk about spiritual science, and where the quantum physics is talking now about unified field of theory and all those stuffs that used, and quantum healing, they all used to come under the Paravidya. So it touched the height of material wealth and also touched the depth of internal wisdom and lighted the path of self-actualization, that is the path of liberation. So our knowledge system were not just based on gathering information about material stuffs, but the whole aim was to find a way where we can, a human, what is the ultimate destiny of a human being, to actualize oneself, to achieve something that a human is meant to, deserves, and that is the path of liberation, which has always been the goal of Indian traditional knowledge system. And from the time of prehistoric caves of Bhimbetka that we find in Madhya Pradesh, and that was a part of prehistoric times when our ancestors had no knowledge of writing, but they could draw on the caves, and it's so wonderful in the coming slides. You will see like how they had this understanding to share their knowledge in such an artistic way. And then the Vedic lore and the most beautiful journey of Shramana tradition that gave birth to various universities and various skills, and the core foundation of India today goes back to the Shramana tradition. With the concepts of equality, liberty, democracy, the first democratic country that India had, and the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is my family. And these are the things that made India to claim that India is a Vishwa Guru. And let's get some understanding of like what these traditional knowledge system had. What were some brief features of it? So first of all, there was a Guru Shishya Parampara existing in that. It was not like today's very formal way of setting. It was a very deep and intimate relationship between a teacher and a disciple. And it was not just the transmission of information, but a guru was something was seen as a Gu plus Ru. Gu is the darkness and Ru is light. So Guru is someone who brings light to your ignorant mind, who shows you the path. That was the beauty of that Guru Shishya Parampara that we had in traditional knowledge system. And to study, one had to leave one place and used to go to Gurukula or Vihara system, where they could focus totally to their study and to be in contact with the Guru and learn from experience, dedicating mind and time for the study to experience it. Then, as I told before, Paravidya and Aparavidya. So knowledge about the external world and about the internal world. Like the question starts for a child, like, who am I? Okay, I'm studying everything, but who am I? Who is that who wants to study? What is that I? It's about. Then systematic and folklore based. So there were systematic ways of teaching, but also they were folklore based, like storytellings and like we have, being a child, we have had these small story books to which we read moral stories and something about our life and the society and existence. So such kind of folklore-based system was also existing. Then vocational and academic. So academic is basically is hardcore related with your university studies, but vocational is something that brings a skill so that you can use it for your vocation. So both kind of studies were also existed. And the first residential learning center was Nandlal. And in the traditional knowledge system, tradition talks of 18 major vidyas. So I before also I talked about like there were so many different varieties of traditional knowledge, and they were called as vidyas. Like these traditions we call as vidyas, or skills we call as vidyas. So there were 18 vidyas and 64 kalas. Kalas is like vocational skills. So they had applied and vocational disciplines like craft. To make a craft also you need an artistic skill, and you have to go to the person who can teach you. So all these used to come into kalas like sculpture, painting, all these stuffs. So the 18 vidyas were like 4 Vedas, subsidiary Vedas, Ayurveda, medicine, Dhanurveda, Veterinary, Gandharva Veda, music, Shilpa, architecture, and sort of so many to count for. And then there is a list table of like what were some major schools and thinkers and the texts. So I will not take more time to ask you to read it, but it's just an idea like how it was so much intricately divided, and how deeply it was studied, and how many texts were already existing. And they had their own historical writers also existed who talked so deeply about certain studies like Natya Shastra, like the science of drama, and Kavya, like whole text of prose and poetry, and then archery and all like that. Yeah, so there's a list of thinkers and their texts. And also in the next slide, in this slide we can see a very important thematic study of our Indian knowledge system, Indian knowledge school. So all schools, we had a philosophical school, which was the, you can say, the bedrock of the other various schools and education system and knowledge system of the ancient India. And these all schools, they were based on questioning the valid knowledge. They were all curious to know what is the truth. They were inquisitive to know what is the truth. And that's how these school systems developed. So basically, historians divided into Astika and Nastika, but both had epistemology, like the source of information, how I'm receiving such kind of information. So there were 3 important sources, were like pratyaksha, like direct perception. If from the 5 senses, whatever I'm receiving, I'll only believe in that. And what I'm receiving through that, I'll believe in that. Then anumana, supposition, and agamas, like some valid resources. Like if today we have research papers, we see like the research papers are agamas because they have been tested, they have validated, they have reliability, so we can trust on the words on these research papers. So agamas were like that. And they had been, based on this epistemology, they had this body of knowledge called as metaphysics, and ethics and aesthetics, which is has been a very important part in Western philosophy also. So ethics has always been a very essential part of Indian school, philosophical schools. And the function goal of knowledge is not to exercise power over others, but power over oneself, moksha, liberation, or liberation of the self from own limitations or constraints. So all these schools in depth had their idea to know what we truly are and how we can actually gain power, not to other or to victimize other, but to know our true power within ourselves. So philosophically, their views were different, but ideally they had the same goals. So on this table, you can find some major important philosophers and their systems like Charvak Darshana, Jain Darshana, Bodh Darshana, Sankhya Darshana, Yog Darshana, Vaiseshika, Nyaya Darshana, Mimamsa Darshana, and Vedanta Darshana. So like that, these are just the like after medieval period, these lists came, but before that also there had been many schools which are not listed here. And yeah, we get in this slide, right hand side, you will find this image of the Takshila University, which is now in the ancient Takshila University, which now locates in the northwest of Pakistan, and the Nalanda University. Like we had some important universities like Takshashila and Nalanda University, where science, medicine, arts, archery, astrology, religious and secular both subjects were taught. And Vallabhi, Vikramshila, Udantapuri, Jagadala, these all universities were also studied. And now, UNESCO has, understood it's important, and they have recently declared as heritage site by UNESCO, which is United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. So I would invite my fellow friends to have a visit of such ancient sites that will really give us proud to know that really we had these kind of education system and centers that gave so much knowledge and wisdom to us. So here we finishes the first part. That was a knowledge system, ancient knowledge system. I know I'm not giving justice to the subjects because they are too much to know. The more we know, the more we feel that it's less. But we have a time limitation, and that I will proceed further to the next topic, that is language. So language, we know, is so important for us. From the time we begin, we begin our journey from Homo erectus to Homo sapien, and we learned these 4 important tools of survival that were knowing how to control fire, how to protect us through clothing, and then language and art were the most important skills that we learned, that paved the path for us to be who we are today. So basically, language, we all know that this is the way through which we are expressing our thoughts, expressing through a very intricate way of using subjects, verbs, and objects. And this helps in learning a lot, because if language has not been there, we would never have collected this all information and knowledge and transmitted it through writings, through speech in a very fast way. It had not happened. So this is one of the advanced skills in Homo sapiens, and this this is one of the way to prove that we have a very highly complex brain, and this is the way we can interact between individuals and communities. Language is that channel, that bridge that connects us all. And one of the very important, interesting study of these times are that scientists are now saying that it also helps neuroplasticity and retention. So in our new education policy, we have focused on multilingualism, which is a very good thing actually. So it means that if being a child, you start to learn more languages, then your brain learns to be more highly effective to learn, to retain it also. And for that also, it also helps to reduce the aging process, and it increases neuroplasticity. So small bit of scientific study to add why languages are important, and that's why we in ancient traditional knowledge system, the language in the form of oral tradition was kept very much intact, and in a certain way, they had a certain way to communicate, they had a certain way to express it, to remember it, and to share from one generation to another. For those who are interested in learning the language 3, which is very complicated, this is the a table. It's very intricate, and we don't have time to explain it. But you can see here that the Indo-Aryan, we can call ourselves Indo-Aryan beings. So we had this 2 important branches of knowledge, one of the Vedic Sanskrit and the Prakrit. So the word itself says that Prakrit is something that is natural, Prakrit, and Sanskrit, Samakritaha, that is something which is cultured, which is made, alterated in a certain way to continue. So we have, like today, whatever languages we speak in India, like the Indian Constitution says that it has scheduled 22 languages, but beside that, India speaks 11,900 languages, and dialects even more than that. We cannot count that. They all come from these major branches of language. And one of the very, very important part of language is the script. So language is how we can communicate through verbal way. Writing is also an important aspect of our language. Unfortunately, the great Indus civilization and the great script of that, which is also called as pictograph or Bustrophodon style, because they could write from left to right and right to left. And it has not been deciphered yet. And this is not very fortunate. Otherwise, we could know a lot about our Indus Valley tradition and the knowledge. Beside that, we have so many in the list. You can see the Brahmi script and Kharoshti script, Gupta, Sharda, Nagari, Devanagari, Kalinga, Grantha, Vatelutu, Kadamba, Tamil. I have not listed there, but there are so many other also existing. So that makes our India so rich, because we are coexisting with all that. And most of us are bilingual, and we can write in more than 2 or 3 languages, which is so beautiful. And so now I move forward firstly to art and culture. So art, well, you can see in the right hand side there is a very beautiful and antique picture, and I think most of us know that what these pictures are. There is this dancing girl and this priest sculpture, the piece that comes from the Indus Valley art. These are the symbols of Indus Valley art. So what art has been a form of expression, not just in our age, but it started from the Paleolithic period, in the Stone Age time, when human had no language to speak, but he could express himself through arts. And we can help change opinions and translate human experience, and it has been a repository of collective memory. A simple act of drawing, now research says that if you are stressed, and if you just draw a simple art, it can help you distress. Such wonderful is the science of art. And I have put this a very beautiful picture of this wall painting that is traced from the prehistoric times, where the Paleolithic people, before the Indus Valley civilizations in Madhya Pradesh, there is a cave called as Bhimbetka cave, and there you can find these kind of drawings, like where animals and human, their life they have portrayed through just carvings and drawings. So it is traced back of 10,000 years old, and they use basically the red colors to express their lives in that time. And then we have that was the pre-Buddha period in Indus Valley civilization. So these are few of the important art and sculpture presentation. So left hand side you will find a very famous stylus, where it is known as a meditative person. There is a meditative person. It's seen as a person who is meditating. And Indus Valley civilization, as historians say, that it was a meditative society. It was a meditative civilization. There used to be peace. So we cannot imagine. No wonder, like Indus Valley civilization was so rich. And no wonder that it could be so rich, because the people were meditative. So prosperity only comes with peace, and if you are not peaceful, you cannot think of being prosperity. And our culture, Indus Valley civilization, is one of the symbol of peace and prosperity. So the first figure of meditative stylus represents that, and then we have the terracotta, and then we have jewelries and animals representation. So they saw how their representation of their life, how they were connected with nature, animals, how reverence they had for the animals and trees, and their life were so peaceful. Like that we can see from the pre-Buddha age of Indus Valley. And the post-Buddha period, it saw as a golden age, which came to the modern art, in which we find stupas, the great stupas, the pillars, rock-cut headaches, and worshipping. And worshipping was initially the form of just like the feet of Buddha and all that they worship initially. So like that you can find there is much to tell, but we have time limitations. So like that we have post-Buddha yakshas and temples and all that. In this slide, you see sculpture, architecture, sports and martial arts, mudra movements, that was from Yogacara school, Shaolin Kung Fu, which spread through Bodhidharma, Akharas, Kalariyapattu, popular media. They have been the part of post-Buddha arts and culture. And the last topic that we have is culture. So, a brief representation of what culture is. What we are is culture. We represent culture. Our thinking process, our behavior, our norms, and what we practice makes us, define us, what culture we belong to. And it encompasses all sorts of behavior, norms, knowledge, arts, custom, capabilities, habits. So human acquired culture through process of inculturation and socialization involving, which involves art and culture. And there is a very beautiful term. We know about intelligence quotient, emotional quotient, but there is also a cultural quotient or cultural intelligence. India and we Indians hold that cultural intelligence alive because it shows the absorption with a high assimilation instead of fanaticism. So you will enjoy assimilating with people from different cultures rather than just creating yourself in a watertight compartment and to be more fanatical. So in India, we have less of these things, which is beautiful. And then we have this whole sorts of themes in culture like religion, religious culture, as these very colorful pictures define India as very colorful. So when foreigners come to India, they find India is a colorful culture. So we have lots of different varieties, like unity and diversity is a real word for India because we enjoy being different and we learn to be united with these differentiations. So we have these clothing and language and cuisine, animals, and the way of greeting. So such a beautiful way of greeting we had is like namaste. So now after COVID, everybody is using this greeting method of namaste, which is so unique in India. Like that, we have different styles and different aspects of culture. So before ending, there is a very beautiful, I can say, it's like sharing that I want to bring. This is inspired by the teachings of Krishnathan, who is a Buddhist monk, and this was brought as a UNESCO Manifesto in 2000. So this manifesto was brought for a culture of peace and non-violence, the values that can inspire youth to shape a world based on justice, solidarity, liberty, dignity, harmony, and prosperity for all. Because the culture of peace can underpin sustainable development, protection, and the well-being of each person. Because I am aware of my share of responsibility for the future of humanity. In particular, to the children of today and tomorrow, I pledge in my daily life, in my family, in my work, my community, my country, and my region too. So this is a very important thing that we need to understand, that if we want to see a change in our society, in our culture, we have to start from us. We are educators, we are communicators, we are healers. So first, when we work on ourselves, then only we have this power and confidence to work on a bigger level. Then we extend our level of work from ourselves to our family, to our work, our community, and country and region. So Krishnathan talked that if we personally, like if we can follow these precepts in our daily life as a mantra, as something that we can really bring it into our practice and thought and action, that would be really beautiful to bring change in the world in a broader aspect. So what are that? Respect all life. Respect the life and dignity of each human being without discrimination or prejudice. So this is, you can find in one of the Panchashilas also. And Panchashilas are followed by Jains, they are followed by Buddhists, they are followed by yogis. So we all have this common understanding that ethics, basic ethics are important. Respect all life means that you will never indulge yourself in anything that brings suffering to other beings, other sentient beings, be it animal, be it a human being or anything. So it depends on your conscience, how further you can take this idea. Reject violence. Practice active violence, rejecting violence in all forms, be it physical, sexual, psychological, economical, social, in particular towards the most deprived and vulnerable, such as children and adolescents. So reject violence means it's not just mean that I will not do violence, but if I'm seeing violence happening, I have this responsibility to do my part to stop it. Share with others, share my time and material resources in a spirit of generosity to put an end to exclusion, injustice, and political and economic oppression. So I have this duty, I should owe to share my time, whatever I have is sharing. That all our life is not dependent, it's interdependent. We are interbeings, or nature beings. So our life is dependent on others' life. And so we should respect this idea that my life is sustained by various other people and factors. And so I should dedicate some of my time, some of my resources with others. Then listen to understand. So lying or saying false speech, it's just one way. But also when we have this capacity where we can listen someone compassionately, when we can speak truly what we feel, that will really help us to define the freedom of expression. That is one of the fundamental rights. And also will respect the cultural diversity, giving preference always to dialogue and listening without engaging in fanaticism, defamation, and rejecting of others. And that will come when we have developed the capacity of deep listening and compassionate listening, others' viewpoint and others' sayings. Then preserve the planet, promote consumer behavior that is responsible, and development practices that respect all forms of life and preserve the balance of nature and the planet. And then rediscover solidarity, contribute to development of my community with the full participation of women and respect for democratic principles in order to create together new forms of solidarity. Development comprises coming together. Last slide. Next slide. So I'm quoting here a very beautiful sutra from Kathopanishad. It says, Utishtat Jagrat Prapya Varanya Bodhat Shurasish Dhara Nishita Duratyaya Durgam Pathas Tat Kavayo Vadanti. Wake up, till how you will sleep, wake up now. It's time to arise, to grasp the wisdom from the awakened one. The path indeed is like walking over a sharp razor edge. So this is a beautiful call from the Kathopanishad, which says that we Indians now have to awake, to go back to our old wisdom and to get united with our ancestors who are ready to share their wisdom through their teachings, practices, and to inculcate them to make India an incredible India again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sister Sumathi. It was so nice listening to you. And when we talk about NEP, we talk about our mother tongue. We talk about all the regional languages we have in India. And to join the same chain, I would like to invite our next guest. तो मैं अपनी मातृभाषा में बात करना चाहूंगी क्योंकि NEP यही एक अलग चीज हमें सिखा रही है कि हमें मदर टंग, अपनी मातृभाषा और जो हमारी रीजनल लैंग्वेजेस हैं उनसे जुड़ना है। तो हमारे जो अगले स्पीकर हैं वो वैसे तो किसी इंट्रोडक्शन के मोहताज नहीं है, उन्हें कोई इंट्रोडक्शन की जरूरत नहीं है। डॉक्टर नीरज करण सिंह सर, जो हमारे गणेश शंकर विद्यालय सुभारती कॉलेज ऑफ जर्नलिज्म एंड मास कम्युनिकेशन के डीपी हैं और एक कवि हैं, एक बहुत ही कुशल मंच संचालक हैं, एक प्रखर प्रवक्ता हैं। तो बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद सर आपका जुड़ने के लिए। तो ओवर टू यू सर।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। ये जो विषय हम लोग डिस्कस कर रहे हैं पिछले एक सप्ताह से, अपने आप में एक क्रांतिकारी विषय है। और क्रांतिकारी विषय मैं इसलिए कह रहा हूं इसको, ये क्रांति जो है वो भ्रांति नहीं फैलाती है। और ये जब नेशनल एजुकेशन पॉलिसी की बात आती है तो इससे पहले जितनी भी एजुकेशन पॉलिसीज हमने और आपने देखी हैं, उसने कहीं ना कहीं एक भ्रांति उत्पन्न जरूर की है, लेकिन क्रांति का काम नहीं। ये एक ऐसी एजुकेशन पॉलिसी है जिसने क्रांति का काम किया और भ्रांति को दूर किया है। भ्रांति अपने तत्व की, मतलब भ्रांति मेरे रूट की, जड़ चेतन की। इससे पहले विद्वान हमारे बीच में बोल रही थी, उन्होंने तमाम बातों को बड़ी माइन्यूटली और बड़ी शानदार तरीके से हम सबके सामने रखा। और इससे आगे ही बढ़ाने की कोशिश करूंगा, ज्यादा लंबा समय नहीं लूंगा। जो भारतीय ज्ञान पद्धति है, प्रक्रिया है, एक संचार का विद्यार्थी होते हुए और उसके बाद में भाषाओं का क्या महत्व रहता है, इस पर थोड़ी बहुत अपनी बात कहने की पूरी कोशिश करूंगा। लेकिन संत समागम हरिकथा तुलसी दुर्लभ दोय, सुत धारा धन लक्ष्मी घर पापी कभी होए, संत मिलन को चालिए तजमाया अभिमान, जो जो पग आगे बढ़े कोटन यज्ञ समान। तो हमारी जो ज्ञान पद्धति रही है वो संत समागम की रही है और हरिकथा की रही है। संत समागम और हरिकथा को हमने दुर्लभ माना है। तुलसी दुर्लभ दोय, सुतधारा धन लक्ष्मी घर पापी के भी हुए। एक सुतधारा और लक्ष्मी जो है पापी की भी हो सकती है। लेकिन जैसे जैसे हम संत मिलन के लिए चलते हैं, जैसे जैसे हम ज्ञान प्रतिपादन और ज्ञान अर्जन के लिए संत का समागम करते हैं, जैसे जैसे उसके लिए बढ़ते हैं, वो किसी यज्ञ से कम नहीं है। ये दोहा ये इस युक्ति को परिमार्जित करता है, स्थापित करता है। और भारतीय ज्ञान पद्धति में इसमें कोई दो राय नहीं कि विश्वविद्यालय और तमाम महाविद्यालय और विद्यालय भारत के अंदर सबसे पहले स्थापित होते हैं। लेकिन एक विद्यालय को हमें आज भी उतना ही क्रेडिट और क्या कहें, उतनी ही विश्वसनीयता के साथ में स्थापित करना पड़ेगा जिसमें दिमाग का, जहन का 80% विकास उस विद्यालय में, उस ज्ञान पद्धति में होता है जिसे हमने कुल कहा है। कुल जहां पर हमारा और आपका जन्म हुआ, वो कुल जहां पर जहन का, वैज्ञानिक कहते हैं कि जहन का 80% विकास कुल में बच्चा जब जितने दिन रहता है, जितने मतलब जब तक वो गुरुकुल में नहीं जाता है और कुल में रहता है, तो माँ रूपी और पिता रूपी और परिवार रूपी गुरु जन उसके उस जहन का, उसके उस मस्तिष्क का विकास करते हैं, उसे शिक्षा प्रतिपादित करते हैं। उसी शिक्षा और संस्कार को लेकर जो उसे कुल में मिली, उसी शिक्षा और संस्कार को लेकर वो गुरुकुल में पहुंचता है। उसे भी कुल कहा गया। वो गुरु का कुल है। ये कुल है कुटुंब का कुल। शिक्षा यहां भी अर्जित की गई और उस शिक्षा को जो कुल में प्राप्त हुई है उसे और ज्यादा आगे चलकर एक बड़े स्तर पर ज्ञान प्रतिपादन की स्थिति में ले जाने के लिए गुरुकुल की संस्थापना होती है। भारतीय शिक्षा व्यवस्था, भारतीय ज्ञान पद्धति, भारतीय ज्ञान प्रक्रिया गुरुकुल संत समागम और हरिकथा से विरक्त नहीं हो सकती, उसके मूल तत्व में है। जिस देश के अंदर विभिन्न रस हों, वीर रस पढ़ाया जाए, श्रृंगार रस पढ़ाया जाए, सौंदर्य रस पढ़ाया जाए, उसकी शिक्षा व्यवस्था रसहीन कैसे हो सकती है? कैसे विद्यार्थी को रस ना आए, कैसे शिक्षक को आनंद ना आए पढ़ाने में, विद्यार्थी को शिक्षा अर्जन में आनंद ना आए? जिस देश में एक देवी को विद्या की देवी के तौर पर माना गया और उसका नाम रखा गया सरस्वती, जो विद्या प्रदान करे रस के साथ, सरस, रस के साथ विद्या प्रतिपादित करने वाली देवी, और उस सरस्वती के प्रतिरूप को आदर्श मानकर हम लोग, आप लोग विद्या अर्जित करते हैं, उसमें जब आनंद नहीं होगा, उसमें रस नहीं होगा, तो फिर समस्या होगी। उसी को हम सबको समझना और जानना होगा। इसलिए कुल और गुरुकुल दो संस्थाएं हैं हमारे और आपके शिक्षा के प्रतिपादन को, करैक्टर को, संस्कार को, संस्कृति को, सभ्यता को सबल करने के लिए, हमारी मानसिक, शारीरिक और आध्यात्मिक शक्ति को उजागर करने के लिए। ना तो हमने पिछली शिक्षा व्यवस्थाओं को मैं सवाल के या किसी प्रश्न चिन्ह के घेरे में नहीं रखता हूं, लेकिन यह मैं प्रखर तौर पर इस पर मैं पूर्ण रूप से विश्वास करता हूं कि अगर आपने कुल को सबल कर दिया तो चरित्र को, आपने आने वाली नई पीढ़ी के चरित्र को सबल कर दिया, और आपने अगर गुरुकुल को सबल कर दिया तो आपने देश के भविष्य को सबल कर दिया। यह आवश्यक है। इसलिए परिवार भी पाठशाला बने, और जो पाठशाला है वो गुरुकुल में स्थापित हो। ऐसी शिक्षा व्यवस्था की आवश्यकता थी जो आनंद और रस के साथ में शिक्षा प्रतिपादित कर सके। इसलिए जब आप कलाओं की बात करते हैं, जब आप भारतीय सिस्टम की बात करते हैं, तो पुरानी जो शिक्षा व्यवस्थाएं हैं, मैं थोड़ा सा एक एग्जांपल के साथ में, मैं ज्यादा लंबा नहीं बोलूंगा क्योंकि ज्यादातर बातें जो हैं वो पूर्व विद्वान ने हमारी बात को, हमारे इस विषय को संपूर्ण रूप से रखा है। छोटी छोटी जो बातें हैं जो कहीं ना कहीं घर करनी चाहिए, मैं उनके ऊपर बात करूंगा। पुरानी नीतियों ने हमें सिखाया ग्लोबलाइजेशन, लेकिन हमारे देश की जो संस्कृति और सभ्यता में रूप था वसुधैव कुटुंबकम का, उससे विमुख कर दिया। अब ग्लोबलाइजेशन हर तरीके से भ्रष्ट बनाने की एक नीति थी, लेकिन हमारी संस्कृति, हमारी भारतीय ज्ञान पद्धति में पूरे धरती को, पूरी धरा को परिवार मानने और उसे उसी तरीके से सम्मान देने, इज्जत देने और उसका ख्याल रखने की सीख हमें दी है। वो कहीं और से नहीं मिली, हमें कुल और गुरुकुल से मिली है। ये ज्ञान पद्धति है। ये ज्ञान पद्धति है कि हम सुबह सुबह जब उठते हैं तो पहली रोटी गाय की है। ये ज्ञान पद्धति है जो हमें यह सिखाती है कि शाम की रोटी स्वान के लिए है। वो जो प्रकृति के साथ में हम सबका नाता जोड़ती है, वो कहीं ना कहीं खत्म हो गई। इसलिए जब आजादी के समय की बात होती है या 1823 की जब बात होती है, तो मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगा 1823 में भारत के प्रत्येक गांव में एक गुरुकुल हुआ करता था। विद्वज्जनों, भारत में उस समय गुरुकुलों की संख्या जो थी वो 9,80,000 थी। किंतु भारत में मैकाले नाम का एक व्यक्ति आता है, मैं किसी व्यक्ति का भी विरोध नहीं करता, लेकिन भारत के तत्व को समझना पड़ेगा। जिसे तत्व का ज्ञान होगा शायद वही भारत में एग्जिस्ट कर सकता है, नहीं तो वही बात होगी जो कॉर्नफ्लेक्स के साथ में हुआ। जब हम संचार पढ़ाते हैं, जब हम पब्लिक रिलेशंस पढ़ाते हैं, जब हम विज्ञापन पढ़ाते हैं, तो एक केस स्टडी आती है। वही हाल होगा भारत के अंदर, क्योंकि भारत को समझा नहीं। भारत को समझना पड़ेगा, और जब समझना पड़ेगा तो उसी तरह की कार्य योजना स्थापित करनी पड़ेगी, तभी सफलता मिल सकती है, अन्यथा असफल हो जाएंगे। जो कॉर्नफ्लेक्स के साथ में हुआ, क्या हुआ? सुबह सुबह इडली डोसा, सुबह सुबह परांठे, सुबह सुबह पूरी और छोले और सब्जी खाने वाला देश, ब्रेकफास्ट करने वाला देश, कैसे कुछ चंद दूध के अंदर कॉर्नफ्लेक्स डालकर और खा लेगा, और उसके बाद में कहेगा कि कॉर्नफ्लेक्स बहुत अच्छा ब्रेकफास्ट है। यह समस्या हुई। किसी भी मैकाले ने, किसी भी ब्रिटिशर्स ने, किसी भी उससे पहले जितने भी आक्रांताएं भारत पर किसी ना किसी रूप में स्थापित हुए, उन्होंने भारत के उस तत्व को नहीं समझा जो प्रमुख तौर से भारत में स्थापित था। उस तत्व को समझता, उस पदार्थ को समझता, तो शायद सफलता मिलती। वो नहीं मिल पाई। लेकिन उसके अगर आप डीएनए में जाएंगे तो आप पाएंगे कि बहुत कुछ अलग था। मैकाले ने भी ऐसा ही किया। उसने क्या किया कि मैकाले ने प्रत्येक पेशे से वकील जो कभी शिक्षा को समझ नहीं सकता था, भारतीय शिक्षा पद्धति को तो बिल्कुल भी नहीं समझ सकता था, उसने शिक्षा को गैर कानूनी बताकर, भारतीय शिक्षा को गैर कानूनी बताकर अपनी स्कूली शिक्षा यहां पर स्थापित करने की कोशिश की। अंग्रेजी शासन में पूरी शिक्षा जो है वो कोशिश की कि वो शासन के अंदर आ जाए, लेकिन इससे पहले भारतीय शिक्षा जो है वो किसी शासन की मोहताज नहीं रही है। वो स्वयं शासित थी। वो किसी शासन से नहीं गर्मोन होती थी। वो संत समागम की शिक्षा व्यवस्था थी। तभी जो है राम शिक्षा लेने के लिए निकलते हैं, तभी कृष्ण शिक्षा लेने के लिए निकलते हैं, तो वो सर मुंडवाकर और एक भिक्षु के तौर पर निकलते हैं, ताकि ये सनद रहे कि हर एक जन का, हर एक व्यक्ति का कल्याण उस शिक्षा में निहित हो। यह भारतीय शिक्षा व्यवस्था थी, जिसको आने वाली तमाम नई पुरानी नीतियों ने कहीं ना कहीं धार पर रख दिया और आनंद और रस को दूर कर दिया। वो आनंद और रस जो 64 दिनों में श्री कृष्ण जो है 64 कला संपूर्ण हो जाते हैं, वो 64 कलाएं ना तो कोई जान पाया और ना ही उसको प्रतिपादित कर सका। 11 शिक्षा पद्धतियां जिसको हमने जो है लेक्चर कह दिया, या उसके बाद में और वो व्याख्या और इंटरप्रिटेशन कह दिया, और इसके अलावा कहना जाने कितनी सारी मेथोडोलॉजीज बना दी गई। लेकिन वो 11 शिक्षा पद्धतियां, जिसमें से प्राचीन विधियां और अर्वाचीन विधियां में दोनों में सेग्रीगेट किया जाता था। भारतीय ज्ञान पद्धति वो थी, ज्ञान शिक्षा की प्रणाली वो थी। सूत्र विधि कितने लोग जानते होंगे? इवन मैं भी अगर इसकी व्याख्या करना प्रारंभ कर दूं तो मैं शायद ही ना कर पाऊं। प्रायण विधि, वाद विवाद विधि, व्याख्या विधि, अव्याकृत विधि, भाषा ससर्ग विधि, जिसे दोनों को ये एक ही कहा गया, व्यतिरेक विधि, आगमन विधि, निगमन विधि। ये वो प्राचीन विधियां शिक्षा की थी जो आचार्य गुरुकुलों में, आश्रमों में अपने विद्यार्थी को प्रतिपादित किया करते थे। इन विधियों का अब लोप हो चुका है, विलुप्त हो चुकी है। 1823 के बाद तो हुई, उससे पहले भी जब मुगल काल रहा है उसमें और ज्यादा भारतीय विद्या कहीं ना कहीं, भारतीय सिस्टम जो है वो कहीं ना कहीं सवालों के घेर पर आ गया और उसको विकृत कर दिया गया, उसका ह्रास कर दिया गया। अर्वाचीन और नवीन विधियों की बात करें, पाठ्य पुस्तक विधि ये जो है उसके बाद में प्रतिपादित होती है। पाठ्यक्रम पुस्तकों पर आधारित, पाठ्यक्रम टेक्स्ट बुक्स पर आधारित विधि कि टेक्स्ट बुक पढ़िए और एग्जाम दे दीजिए। सहयोग अथवा समवाय विधि, ये विधि लुप्त हो गई। उसके बाद में आगमन निगमन विधि, ये 11 विधियां हैं जो शिक्षा प्रतिपादन की वैदिक विधियां थी, जो हमारे आश्रमों में, हमारे गुरुकुलों में हमारे आचार्यगण, हमारे पूर्वजों को पढ़ाया बताया करते थे। इसलिए 64 कला संपन्न 64 दिनों के अंदर अंदर कृष्ण हो जाते हैं। अब वो 64 कलाएं कौन सी है? आप भी अनभिज्ञ और हम भी अनभिज्ञ। 24 कलाएं का भी एक रूप है और 16 कलाओं का भी एक रूप है। उनकी भी बात हमारे वैदिक ग्रंथों में कही गई है कि वो कलाएं भी होती हैं। लेकिन भारतीय विद्या ने, भारतीय ज्ञान पद्धति ने, भारतीय ज्ञान सिस्टम ने क्या किया? 3 स्तर पर हमें सबल बनाने की संपूर्ण कोशिश की। मैं जो कल के लेक्चर में भी बोल रहा था, कल की बात में भी कह रहा था, मानसिक तौर पर हमें सबल बनाया। आप इससे पहले देख लीजिए कि कहीं सुसाइडल टेंडेंसी नहीं हुआ करती थी। कब होनी शुरू हुई है? जब आपने शिक्षा को एक कुंठित स्तर में प्रतिपादित करना शुरू किया, एक प्रतिशत और मार्क्स पर या अंकों पर तक केंद्रित कर दिया, क्वालिटी पर नहीं। एक डॉक्यूमेंट जो है, वो एक शिक्षा का मतलब हो गया एक डॉक्यूमेंट, एक डिग्री। शिक्षा इससे आगे नहीं सोची। शिक्षा का रूप जो है वो सूचना और ज्ञान और शिक्षा का मतलब कुछ और सोच लिया, लेकिन इसकी प्रक्रिया जो आश्रम की प्रक्रिया थी या भारतीय ज्ञान पद्धति की प्रक्रिया थी, उसको कभी भी नहीं सोचा। वो क्या थी कि किसी भी भारत, हमारे जो पूरे शरीर में ईश्वरीय संकल्पना जो है, वो आप उसको पूरे संपूर्ण रूप से देखेंगे कि 2 से ज्यादा अंग कोई नहीं है, लेकिन 6 ऐसे अंग हैं, 5 ऐसे अंग हैं जिन्हें ज्ञानेंद्रिय कहा गया। वो ज्ञानेंद्रियां और बहनों में छठी एक और ज्ञानेंद्रियां, उन ज्ञानेंद्रियों के कारण जो है हम सूचना ग्रहण करते हैं। वो सूचनाएं ग्रहण करने के बाद में उसका एनालिसिस, उसका रिटेन करते हैं, जो भारतीय ज्ञान पद्धति है। उस रिटेन करने के बाद में वो ज्ञान के रूप में हमारे सामने आता है, जब हम सूचनाओं का विश्लेषण करते हैं, एनालिसिस करते हैं। वो तमाम सूचनाएं हमारी ज्ञान बनती है, और ज्ञान का सही प्रयोग जब हम करना प्रारंभ करते हैं तो वो शिक्षा बनती है। उस शिक्षा व्यवस्था को हमने कहीं ना कहीं विकृत कर दिया विभिन्न शिक्षा नीतियों के तहत। इसलिए वो जो 9,80,000 हमारे आश्रम थे वो खंडित हो गए। उसकी जगह पर एक नई नीति आई, मैकाले की शिक्षा नीति। गुरुकुलों में पढ़ाने वाले आचार्यों को प्रताड़ित किया गया, गुरुकुलों को बंद कर दिया गया, उनको शारीरिक यातनाएं देगी। उस समय में शिक्षा सरकार के हाथ में है, यह जानकारी संक्षिप्त में दी गई। ठीक है, पूर्ण जानकारी के लिए हम ये जो इस पूरे सिस्टम को समझने के लिए किताब जरूर हमें पढ़नी चाहिए। मुझे लगता है धर्मपाल जी की लिखी हुई रमणीय वृक्ष, जिसका अंग्रेजी में ट्रांसलेशन है द ब्यूटीफुल ट्री, इस किताब को अगर हम पढ़ेंगे तो हम इस पूरे तंत्र को समझ पाएंगे कि किस तरह से मैकाले की शिक्षा व्यवस्था ने हमें एक नौकरी करने वाले व्यक्ति बना दिया। लेकिन भारतीय ज्ञान पद्धति ने हमारे चरित्र को जो संबल दी है, जो शक्ति दी है, वो चरित्र कहीं खो गया। इसलिए चरित्रशालाओं की बड़ी आवश्यकता पड़ने लगी। इसे समझने के लिए और जब आगे हम बढ़ते हैं तो हम पाते हैं कि विद्या की देवी सरस्वती, और इस सरस्वती के पूजन और जितने भी जो देव हमारे आसपास देखेंगे, कहीं ना कहीं किसी आर्ट को लेकर हैं, कहीं ना किसी एक यंत्र को या कहीं ना किसी वाद्य यंत्र को बजाने वाले हैं, कहीं ना कहीं किसी रूप और किसी संस्कृति से जुड़े हुए हैं, किसी भाषा को प्रतिपादित करने वाले हैं। ये कहीं ना कहीं रुकावट हुई है, और कुल और गुरुकुल की संकल्पना को बाधित करने का जो काम हुआ है पिछली शिक्षा नीतियों ने, अब की जो शिक्षा नीति है वो कहीं ना कहीं उसको स्थापित करने की कोशिश करती है। इसलिए परिवार बने पाठशाला, इसकी संकल्पना इसमें आती है। कहीं ना कहीं ये बात आती है कि जो पाठशाला है, जो गुरुकुल है, उसको, जो शिक्षण संस्थान है, उसको और ज्यादा आनंद और रसवान बनाया जाए, ताकि विद्यार्थी भी आनंद के साथ में शिक्षा प्राप्त कर सके और शिक्षक भी आनंद के साथ में शिक्षा प्रतिपादित कर सके। इसलिए भाषा के साथ में, कुल और गुरुकुल के साथ में, भाषा में शिक्षा, अपनी भाषा में शिक्षा आपको एक नया प्रतिरूप देगी। इसलिए जब आप देखते हैं कि गुरुकुल को आश्रम कहा गया, आश्रम के साथ साथ में उस जगह को विद्यालय कहा गया, जो विद्या को देने का आलय है, उसका संबंध सीधे तौर पर विद्या से जुड़ा हुआ है। आप किसी भी विदेशी भाषा या किसी भी दूसरी भाषा की बात कर लीजिए, आपको वो कहीं ना कहीं शिक्षा से विमुख दिखाई देगी। हम स्कूल की बात करते हैं, लेकिन उसको, स्कूल को जब हम अपनी भाषा में बोलते हैं, अपनी मातृभाषा में बोलते हैं, तो विद्यालय है, मतलब विद्या देने वाला आलय, जहां पर विद्या प्राप्त की जा सकती है। उच्च शिक्षा देने वाला, वहां पर शब्द है कॉलेज, हमारे यहां पर शब्द है महाविद्यालय, उच्च शिक्षा देने वाला। दूसरी भाषाओं में है यूनिवर्सिटी, हमारी भाषा में है विश्वविद्यालय, विश्व स्तर पर शिक्षा प्रतिपादित करने वाला, पाठ पढ़ाने वाला, पाठशाला, शिक्षा देने वाला। टीचर नहीं है वहां पर। यह भारतीय संस्कृति है, यह भारतीय शिक्षा व्यवस्था है, वो आश्रम व्यवस्था है जिसे हमें अब दोबारा सोचने विचारने की जरूरत है। एक नई होलिस्टिक सार्वभौमिक दृष्टि के साथ में वो तमाम 64 कलाधारी विद्यार्थी हो। इसलिए आप देखते हैं कि आप हर साल में, हर सेमेस्टर में, अगर मेरा संबंध या मेरा इंटरेस्ट जो है किसी भी रूप से नृत्य कला में है, तो मैं सीधा जो है ना फाइन आर्ट कॉलेज में जाकर शिक्षा हासिल कर सकूं। यह स्वतंत्रता अब मिलनी प्रारंभ होगी। और मेरी अपनी भाषा में, मेरी अपनी आत्मभाषा में, मेरी अपनी भाषा में जिसमें मुझे स्वप्न दिखाई देता है, उस भाषा में मैं जिसमें मेरा जन्म हुआ है, उस भाषा में मैं अब प्राप्त करूंगा शिक्षा, तो वो ज्यादा मेरे नजदीक होगी। वो मेरी ज्यादा संस्कृति और मेरी सभ्यता को, जो आगे के कला और संस्कृति का जो विषय है, जब भाषा सबल होगी तो संस्कृति भी सबल होगी, जब भाषा सबल होगी तो उसकी कला भी सफल होगी। लेकिन हमने अपनी इस कला और भाषा के भेद को कहां पर स्थापित कर लिया? प्रतिशत के आधार पर, कि भाषा जो है वो पास करने वाला एक विषय बन गया। कभी भाषा विषय नहीं होना चाहिए था, भाषा होना चाहिए था संप्रेषण। भावनाओं को संप्रेषित करने का माध्यम भाषा है, विषय नहीं हो सकता। तो इन तमाम चीजों को हमने प्रतिस्थापित किए जाने की आवश्यकता है। आनंद के साथ में शिक्षक शिक्षा दे सके, आनंद के साथ में विद्यार्थी शिक्षा प्राप्त कर सके, इसी बात को ये शिक्षा नीति कहीं ना कहीं प्रतिस्थापित करती है। जो हमारा कुल है उसको सबल करने की बात करती है, जो हमारा गुरुकुल है उसे सबल करने की बात करती है। हमें एक वो 64 कला संपन्न विद्यार्थी बनाने की ओर ले जाने की कोशिश करती है। उन विधियों से हमको जोड़ती है जो शिक्षण और प्रशिक्षण की विधियां हैं। तो ये शिक्षा नीति कहीं ना कहीं हमें इससे जोड़ेगी, ये पूर्ण विश्वास है। और ये राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति है, ये कोई नई या पुरानी शिक्षा नीति नहीं है, राष्ट्रीयकृत शिक्षा नीति है। इस शिक्षा नीति में हम सबको आगे बढ़कर आनंद और रस की शिक्षा का प्रतिपादन करना है। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ में बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद सर। और जब भी मौका मिलता है आपके साथ काम करने का, तो यही जोश रहता है आपका हमेशा, जो आज आपने इस लेक्चर में दिया। और सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट है कि जो आप कहना चाहते हैं वो आप सही शब्दों में कह पाएं, वो बहुत जरूरी है। वो हमेशा आपके साथ रह के हमें सीखने को मिलता है। सो थैंक यू सो मच।
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपको।
इसी के साथ आज का ये NEP 2020 का वेबिनार समाप्त होता है। I'll start with a vote of thanks. I'm more comfortable with English, so I'll continue forward in English only. So first and foremost, I would like to thank VC sir for giving us this responsibility to organize today's webinar. I would also like to thank Dr. Shailya Raj, Chief Executive Officer, Swami Vivekanand Subharti University, for leading us and motivating us. I would like to thank our speakers of the day, Ms. Sumathi Singh and Professor Dr. Neeraj Karan Singh sir. And most importantly, I would like to thank our IT team, which has helped us to reach our audience, and all the viewers who have joined us from different virtual backgrounds. Thank you so much, everyone. Jai Hind.